Today on Ham Radio Q&A, we're talking about Q codes and calling CQ, so please stay tuned to find out more. Hi, I'm Michael, KB9VBR, your host for Ham Radio Q&A. I'm on a mission to inspire and educate the ham radio community, so if this is your first time watching, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Well, my recent video on my Parks on the Air activation at Rib Mountain State Park in Wisconsin generated a few questions about the codes I was using as I was making contacts. Melanio asks, what was the last word he is saying every time the last transmission? And Al writes, when you use the Q code, can you post the meaning on the screen, a bit of subtitles? I know I can look it up on the internet, but damn, that's fast sometimes. Well, those are great questions, and if you're new to ham radio and don't have much experience on the HF bands, you may not be accustomed to the terminology you find floating around on the air. So today, I'm going to break down my conversation exchanges from that Parks on the Air activation and also tell you how to call CQ, so you will be ready to hit the air like a pro. Q codes, or Q signals, were developed long ago when sending and receiving CW or Morse code was the norm. Common phrases and activities were assigned codes to make their transmission faster. Much like what the kids are doing these days in using shorthand with their text messaging, CW operators used a similar shorthand to speed their messaging. Since the codes became universally understandable on the air, they naturally moved into phone operations, and now they're used in almost every aspect of on-the-air HF activity. Now, one thing to consider is that you'll seldom hear these codes on the air in clear voice modes like FM analog or digital, either via simplex or on the repeaters. The reason being is that the voice is much more understandable in these modes, so their codes or signals aren't necessary. We also tend to stay away from jargon and unfamiliar terms in these modes, so it's just as easy to say what you mean and then to use the corresponding terms. But on HF, where band conditions and signal quality can vary greatly, and with DX context there might be a language barrier, these codes or signals have become almost universally accepted and ubiquitous in conversation. So let's break things down. First off, calling CQ. CQ is a procedural signal that means calling any station. When I say CQ over the air, I'm asking for any station to respond to me. The reason I'm calling for any station can be varied. It could be for a contest or a special event, or just to talk to another person. I'm not looking for a specific station, but instead any station. But first, before I can call CQ on the air, I need to make sure that the frequency is clear. HF propagation can vary, and what may seemingly be a clear frequency could be in use by another person. The reason is that you may not be able to hear both sides of a conversation. It's not totally unusual to hear only half the conversation on the HF bands due to propagation or distance between you and the other station. So, as a point of courtesy, we'll always start out by saying, is the frequency in use? I'll do that a couple of times. Is the frequency in use? And then sign with my call sign. If no one comes back, I'll start calling CQ. But sometimes, when you first start calling CQ, someone will come back telling you that the frequency is in use. This could be due to slightly changing conditions, or maybe you're too close to another station on an adjacent frequency. That's okay. And if you're interfering with another conversation, net activity or an adjacent frequency, you just move up or down the dial a little bit to find a clear spot. When you're just starting out, trying to assert your presence does no good, and it will only make it more difficult for you to continue on that frequency. Now that our clear frequency is established, let's call CQ. CQ, Parks on the Air. CQ, Parks on the Air. KB9VBR, Kilo Bravo Niner, Victor Bravo Romeo, calling CQ for Parks on the Air.
November 9, Romeo, Victor Bravo.
In my call for CQ, or calling any station, you'll hear me first say CQ a couple of times, and then I say Parks on the Air, and then I'll give my call sign twice, first normally, then the second time phonetically. Finally, I'll finish again with the reason I'm calling, and that would be for a Parks on the Air activation. If If I was calling CQ for a contest, I'd substitute the contest name instead of Parks on the Air, like I did, for the Wisconsin QSO party earlier this spring. CQ, the Wisconsin QSO party. CQ, Wisconsin QSO party. KB9 VBR, Kilo Bravo Niner, Victor Bravo Romeo, calling CQ. If I wanted to start up a conversation with someone, then I'd just say CQ, anyone, anywhere, CQ, anyone, and then give my call sign. There's no specific rule on how the CQ should be called. And if you listen on the air, you'll hear all sorts of personal styles. My best advice is to listen a bit first, and then craft your CQ exchange that works best for you. Moving on, as we establish a contact with another station, we'll want to give them a signal report and our location. In contacts for contests or special events, the exchange may only be about signal and location, as we're going for quantity over quality. And you'll want to check with the rules for a contest or event on what is required for the exchange. But in more casual conversations, this would be the starting point of the exchange, and then you'd want to let the conversation kind of flow. So let's listen to a Parks on the Air exchange. November 9, Romeo Victor Bravo. You're 5-7 here into Wisconsin, Whiskey India. Park number K1473. 1473 is Rib Mountain State Park, QSL.
Roger. Thanks for 1473. Got you about 5-7 here into Indiana. Thanks for activating today and enjoy your time in the park. 7-3.
For Parks on the Air, we give out three things: the signal report, the park's serial number, which starts with the letter K, and our location. With voice conversations, the signal report will be based on readability and signal strength. A fully readable signal is given a 5. Somewhat readable could be a 3, and barely intelligible could be a 1. The signal strength is based on what your radio's S meter says. So a signal report of 5-7 or 5x7 means the signal is fully understandable and it measures a 7 on your S meter. Just note that these numbers are, fully subjective, and if you're in a contest, often the signal report will always be 5x9, regardless of how good or bad it is. In other cases, the station will give you an honest signal report. But signal reports are based on the receiving station's equipment antenna, so really, as long as both stations can carry on a conversation, it's a good quality signal. Next is location, which is going to be the K number for the Parks on the Air. Rib Mountain State Park is K1473. So I give that and my physical location. Not every station will have ready access to the list of numbers, so it's good to let them know where you are so they have an idea of how far their signal has traveled. If I was in a contest, like a QSO party, may I also give my county or state, depending on that contest rules. Now I must add that some stations will be more chatty than others. So if another station wants to engage in a conversation, it would be polite to continue the conversation. If the person calling CQ, though, wants to move on and take another call, that's quite common. And if there's a pileup of stations waiting, then take that cue and move on. I find it best to listen to the station running their frequency and follow their lead. Of course, if you're the one that's calling CQ, then you make the rules and you can decide how fast or slow you want each contact to be. After I give the exchange, I'll say the Q code QSL. QSL means, do you copy or acknowledge what I sent? I could say, do you copy, or just the word over, but in an exchange of information, the term QSL is universally accepted on the HF bands to mean I am done transmitting the information and I want to know if you received it. That's the indication for the other station to give their exchange of information, which of course would consist of a signal report and location. If you're on the other end of a conversation, you could use the signal QSL to indicate that you're done, but most stations will either just stop transmitting or say the word over. When the other station gives their location, they may say QTH, as in QTH is my location is, and then they give their state or locale they are transmitting from, such as my QTH is Wausau, Wisconsin. When they are done transmitting, I'll say thank you and acknowledge the information in their transmissions. This completes a two-way contact as both stations have acknowledged the information that is passed. I'll log the time and date of the contact, and I'll move on to the next contact.
Thanks for activating today and enjoy your time in the park. 7-3.
Yeah, roger that. It's a good day good day to be out. I'm glad to make the contact. You have a good one. This is KB9VBR QRZ. Since the contact is complete and I want to move on to the next station waiting, I'll use the Q code QRZ or QRZ. QRZ means either who is calling me next or next station please. As a person calling CQ, I'm saying that I'm ready for another station. If you're listening, that's your indication to give out your call sign and to make a contact. This is KB9VBR QRZ.
Kilo Delta 8, Romeo Sierra Hotel.
So you can see how you can control the flow of the contact by using the terms QSL and QRZ in your exchange of information. These two terms are accepted, so they work with local, regional, and DX or long distance HF contacts. You won't hear them on the VHF or UHF repeaters, but they're totally acceptable for HF. There's a few more common Q codes that you may hear on the air, and I'll go through them now. Most common are the terms QRM and QSB to describe band conditions. QRM is quite common, and it means, is my signal being interfered with, or there's interference on your signal? QRM is most often man-made interference, and it may be because you're too close to an adjacent frequency that's in use, someone may be tuning up near you, or there's another station on the frequency that you can't hear, but the receiving station can hear it loud and clear.
QSL 1473 in the 5x7. You're also 5x7 this way. Got some QR, Mary, but I was able to pull you through. Thank you very much. 7-3, good luck. 3ZN.
They will tell you about the QRM, and it would be up to you if you want to adjust your frequency or stay and deal with the QRM as it is. If you need to adjust your frequency, you may use the Q code QSY. That means I am changing my frequency. If you announce that you are going to QSY, you can give a frequency, or if you're changing to another band, you can announce that you're going to QSY to another band. QSB, on the other hand, means, is my signal fading, or your signal is fading. As the band conditions change and propagation shifts, your signal may be strong 1 second and weak the next. The other station will let you know if there is a bit of QSB or changing band conditions going on. There's not much you can do with changing conditions other than possibly, changing antennas, using an amplifier, something like that. But even that's not a guarantee. I usually find the best recourse is to work with the conditions that you're given, and when the band closes up, it might be time to quit. Of course, if the band dies, you can go QRO. That means I'm going to increase transmit power, or I'm running at full transmit power. But if you're in the field, you don't have that option, and you may only be working QRP. QRP means, shall I decrease transmit power, or I'm running low power, which usually a QRP station could be 10 watts or less. When you decide to quit, you can announce that you're going to be going QRT. That means you're going to stop now, and you'll no longer be using the frequency. This is a nice courtesy, so another station will know if they can use the frequency that just opened up. There's a lot more Q codes out there, and these are just the most common ones you're going to hear on the air. You'll find a full list in the ARRL's document FSD-218, which lists the codes and the procedurals for sending messages via CW or phone. They also have a nice one-page sheet that you can print out and keep by your station for reference. Links to both of these documents can be found in the video description below. So how do you use Q codes in your HF conversations? Or if you're new on the air, do you have any questions about Q codes? Well, please leave them in the comments below. I'll follow up on the conversation and maybe even pull out a few for my next Your Questions Answered video. But for more articles and information, be sure to check out my blog at www.jpole-antenna.com. Your support of this channel drives the production of future videos, so if you like this video, you always give me that big thumbs up. Check out some of the recommended videos right alongside here, and if you've watched this far, press that subscribe button. Pressing subscribe is your way to be notified when a new video is released. Well, that's it for this time. I'm Michael, KB9VBR. Have a great day, and 73.